Good afternoon. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer.
And I'm Richard Munchkin.
Today is a Bob and Richard Answer Their Mailbag show. We look for questions sent to gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com or sometimes the Twitter feed or sometimes our personal emails. We're running low on questions, so send them in and we'll get them on future shows. Our first question. I use high-low and primarily like to play double deck. Looking for a suggestion is the best way to calculate true count. Some said have divide by a quarter deck or a half deck, and some say multiply instead. Richard, he wants your suggestions.
Well, you can do either one. It just depends on what, is easier for you. With double deck, halfway through your running count is your true count because you're at a one deck level. So and not many places deal more than one deck out of two on a double deck. So I don't think you need to worry about quarter decks. I mean, maybe I would think about when there's 1.5 decks left, and then when you're getting closer to one deck. And, if you're at all close to a number, most importantly is your strategy changes. I would lean toward playing the basic strategy play over the index play. If you're at all close, just play basic strategy. And in my particular case, if it's close to whether to, what number, if you're at a true 3 or a true 4, I lean toward betting more and changing my playing strategy less.
Okay. Next question. I've always been intrigued by some of your programs on slot machine players and wanted your opinion on the course offered by Peter Liston. I'm sure if I wanted to put in the time, I could figure out a lot of it on my own, but I've access to a lot of data from the machines, and I think it could be worth it to take a course and maybe to build up my network. My question to you is that would you take the course if you were looking for a few advantage plays, but not wanting to make a living doing it? Or would you do some more homework and possibly find a teacher a little closer to home?
You want to go first, or?
Yeah. First of all, I think Peter Liston's on the level. We generally try to avoid touts. And if somebody's been on the show more than once, then you can bet that Richard and I do not think they're touts. Peter's play mostly are the machines he finds in Australia. And if you're playing in Australia, that would be fine. If you're looking for U.S. games, that's probably a small part of his course. But were I interested in slot hustling, yes, the few $1,000s he charges would be well worth it, a good source of information, but I would not let that be my only source. Richard?
My answer is I don't know. I don't have enough information. In the case of, to compare it to, say, Blackjack Boot Camp, I know, or I've spoken to many people that have taken the course and come back and said that they thought it was great and worthwhile. I don't know anybody who's taken Peter's course, so I don't really, and I don't really know what he covers. It sounds like the vast majority of what he plays is must hit by, so and again, this is just guessing because I don't know, but I'm guessing basically what he teaches is how to calculate must hit by machines so that you know when you have an edge and when you don't. But I don't know what else he teaches. So Yeah, so I just don't have enough information to know how good his course is.
And you might send him an email asking him for this kind of an outline of the course of what it is that he will teach and see if that coincides with what it is that you want to learn. Next question. I'm hoping to play some good video poker when I come to Vegas next week and would like 3 of your favorite video poker bars, gaming bars or lounges, not casinos. I've been away from Vegas gaming bars for a while and would like to get back into the scene. I respect your opinions greatly. Well, although you phrased it politely, I heard this as you asking me to tell you my 3 best plays, including the ones I keep secret so I can milk them some more, so you don't have to go through the effort of scouting yourself. This is something I'm just not interested in doing. Richard, perhaps you have some secret games you'd like to share.
Well, I don't know that's what he's asking, because if you're just looking for money making plays, I wouldn't think the place you'd be looking for is bars. But and because I don't play video poker, I would have no idea. But you if it's not strictly money making, I would look at the Las Vegas Advisors stuff because Anthony Curtis talks a lot about Crown and Anchor, which I know he likes. There on the last episode with Frank B, there was a recommended of a place that had tacos in the name. It was somewhere at like Sahara and Maryland Parkway that they thought was great. But these are mainly great because they like the atmosphere and there are good deals on food. And, if you put a $20 bill in the machine, you're getting to eat and drink for free, basically. So, yeah, I would check some of those Las Vegas Advisor recommendations. And I don't think it's any secret, Bob, that you've talked about playing at the bars Dottie's a lot. You've talked about that often, so there's always that.
Yeah, Dottie's, I still play at Dottie's, but Dottie's is not for visitors. To get value out of Dottie's, you need the mailers and you need the W2G promotions. So if you're just coming in from out of town, the best game they have is 9-6 Jacks with a .15 slot club, and that's not a money making play without the.
Yeah, I was going to say also on Las Vegas Advisor, at some point I know Anthony was putting up sign-up bonuses. So there might be a couple of $100 to be made running around to bars doing the sign-up bonuses for their video poker clubs.
All right, next question. I noticed that Indian casinos never open up new card decks face up in front of the players or examine the decks on the table before shuffling like they do in Nevada casinos. I noticed the pit bosses open what seem to be unsealed decks and quickly finger through them before sticking them in the shuffle master machine. I questioned many, and they either shrug or say it saves time. Nobody, even the dealers, know if the decks are true. Let me finally get to my question. Do you think Indian casinos remove tens or aces from the decks? Is this possible because they're on a reservation following their own rules? I was just wondering if there's been any similar question by any of the higher-ups in the blackjack world. Richard.
So I wouldn't say at all that all Indian casinos do this. This sounds like something that's typical of your local places if you live near some. But anyway, in your market, okay, that's what they're doing. Is it possible? Sure. Is it likely? I doubt it. First of all, it's usually very, very obvious when a casino does this. because you count down a shoe and you get to the cut card and it's always plus 20. Um, and you see that happen a few shoes in a row, and then you realize that this is what they've done. Um, but you know, I would not have a big concern about this because I think the word would spread very quickly if an Indian casino or if any casino was doing that. So, that is not the way casinos cheat these days. The way they cheat these days is they just don't pay you. Um, so they, steal your money. So I wouldn't worry about tens and aces being removed from the shoe.
But you said the word would spread. It sounds to me like the word would spread among players that the casino doesn't want anyway. And their bread and butter players would not be in the loop for spreading of that information.
Well, I think, it would get to the players would want that to get to the media as quickly as possible, or to try to file a lawsuit if there was a way. I mean, 20 some years ago, I remember it was suspected that a casino, a way off-strip casino, was doing this. And, there was a big coalition put together of we literally were thinking about um, filming the shoe and then stealing the discards and running out the door to be able to prove it, to document it. This is the same case where, because people always say casino would get shut down if they cheated in Nevada doing this, and which is just absurd. They would never shut down one of these casinos for cheating in Las Vegas. But this, at the time, I was doing shows for the Travel Channel, and we were doing a show where we were interviewing the head of gaming enforcement. And while we were there for the interview, without the cameras rolling, one of the other producers said to the head of gaming enforcement, "Hey, there's this rumor that this casino is removing tens and aces from the shoe, and what would happen if they were doing that?" And his response was, "Oh, we would take this very, very seriously." He said the first thing we would do is write them a letter about it. And I'm like, yeah, that'll do a lot. You'll nab them that way.
So they wouldn't confiscate a shoe. They'd write a letter first.
Yeah, they'd write a letter first. And then maybe tell them, we're going to come Saturday at 7 o'clock and check. And,
All right. Next question. With the proliferation of casinos across the country, it doesn't seem like playing conditions are getting any better for the gambler. They're actually getting worse. I'm interested in your thoughts. And you're right. It's a cat and mouse game between the players and the casinos. Players are becoming more knowledgeable about the games, thanks in part to this show and writing of various people, including me. So casinos have had to tighten up to maintain their profit margin. The best players are very responsive to how loose the games are. The average player, for the most part, isn't so responsive. APs generally prosper on various kinds of mistakes and loopholes. If a casino identifies those, the casino will fix the mistake and close the loophole. There are still advantageous plays out there, but they require a great bit of knowledge and scouting to find. Richard.
Yeah, I mean, to be a professional gambler, you have to constantly adapt, because what worked 5 years ago isn't going to work today. And the people that are successful are the people that find new ways to gain an advantage. In the future, will there be advantage play? I'm optimistic. I mean, I started playing in 1977, and every single year I have heard people say blackjack is dead. It's over. You can't make a living anymore playing blackjack. And every year basically got better. Maybe not for the straight card counter. Blackjack players move on to adding other games and other techniques to their repertoire if they're gonna stay in it. And That is why people ask us all the time to talk about slot machine plays, and other than to say that they exist and that people are doing it, we don't get into the specifics just because then they will get ruined and taken out.
Next question. I'm trying to perfect my deuces wild play, primarily but not exclusively NSU. Well, I don't want to ask for any secrets that would devalue the proposition of attending your course in person. Can you explain how to know when to consider penalty cards, specifically straight penalty cards, when determining which to discard? Well, in general, a penalty card is one that affects the value of the cards in one or more of the combinations that you're considering holding. For example, in NSU, when you're considering holding a deuce along with a suited 4-5, if the other two cards are an ace-8, you hold the deuce 4-5. If they're an ace-7, you just hold the deuce. The answer to the question of when these are important is not simple to explain. The answer is basically whenever it makes a difference, or sometimes whenever it makes a difference more than a penny or more than 2 pennies. The Dancer Daily Winner's Guide to NSU Deuces Wild is less than $20 and takes about 60 pages explaining all of the penalty cards for that game. It's just far too complicated to handle in less than a minute on a podcast. Next question. A casino is giving me a free hotel night comp and free play. If I never use a hotel comp, will the casino increase my free play? My answer is most casinos won't do that. Hotel comps are soft, meaning that if they have unfilled room, it's not very expensive for a casino to give you a free room. Free play is very similar to cash and value. With that said, if you have a good host and you're considered a valuable customer at the casino, which means they think you lose a lot, then you can ask. The answer will probably be no, but you don't know until you ask. Richard, have you ever tried this?
No, because usually the casino wants you to be staying there. So to refuse the room means you're staying at maybe some other casino. So, but as Bob said, this is a comp. The room doesn't cost them anything to give you, other than to have a maid clean it or whatever. So, yeah, I have not had any experience with that. Now things have changed a lot over the years, but 20 years ago, I would stay in a room, and what I was mostly interested in was cash airfare reimbursement. So I would take their free room. I would tell them I don't want a suite. I just want to. I actually would tell them I want a handicap room because that would sound like I had a reason for not wanting the suite. And so then on the end of my trip, when I went to ask for airfare reimbursement, which again is just cash in your hand, I would be able, and I would not go eat on the comp. So the only thing that I had used was their free room. And then at the end of the trip, when I went to get my airfare reimbursement, I would say, look, I didn't eat anywhere. I didn't use any comps at all. I'd like to get my airfare reimbursed. And it was a stronger argument than if I had, gone and had dinner with 6 people in the gourmet room and run up a $1,000 bill.
Okay. Next question, I'm going to let Richard handle first. Said if I were to buy into blackjack for, say, $2,000, lose it, buy in for another $2,000, lose it, and then start playing with $15,000 from a chip bank, and let's say I lose all of that, does that generate a CTR? Shouldn't, since there's only $4,000 cash involved, correct?
Correct. Yeah. No, that would not generate a CTR. It would look very weird to the pit, though. If you have $15,000 in chips, why are you buying in with cash first? So if I were going to play that way, I would do the reverse. I would use the chips first and And if you run out of chips, then I would start buying in. But your question, no, it does not generate a CTR.
And for video poker, CTRs are no big deal. And if you play that big, you've hit W2G, so they already know your name and address. And the government doesn't really care about CTRs.
Well, and also on video poker, you can feed 10,000 coin into the machine in cash, and it won't lock up and give you a CTR, right? I mean, they don't count cash into a machine as nobody counts that.
Correct. Although most machines, well, it depends on the casino. Many machines won't take that much in cash. But
you mean even over a period of time? If you put in 1,000 at a time,
but in the larger casinos today, if you're going to play a lot, it's just a whole lot easier just to give them 10 or 15,000 and have them give you tickets of either put it on the machine directly or give you tickets of 5,000 each or some such, which is a whole lot easier than feeding in $100 bills. But this is for people who are not trying to disguise their ID. Most people who are trying to disguise their ID do not play video poker for stakes where they're going to get a W2G. All right, next question. When I refuse a player's card, some casinos then ask for my driver's license. How should I respond to that? I'm well over 21 and it's not for my age.
As Nancy Reagan said, just say no. Just tell them, sorry, I don't have it. I left it in the car. Whatever. No thanks. And then you may have, by the way, this is something it's a trope you will hear a lot in casinos. There are idiots who will say it's illegal not to have an ID in a casino. And that's just total bullshit. It's not true at all. So,
but whether it is true or not, the fact if a shift boss believes it, then they can say, well, you can't play here then.
Oh, of course. Yeah, and I mean, often when they ask for your ID, it means you may have heat already anyway, and it's time to just get up and leave.
Okay, a continued question from that same player. When refusing a player's card, sometimes they will ask me for my name to punch it into their pit. I usually go with something like Mickey or Donald. If they press the issue for a full name or keep bugging me, I say Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck. Then I tend to get bold with them as they don't have much of a fuse for the games they play. I remember an old episode with Bob Nersessian where he said there's nowhere in the country that you have to provide your name just for being there. Or is it okay to just give them a made-up name altogether and play it off? As long as you don't have to show ID for anything, they will be none the wiser. Correct?
Yeah, no, that's fine. But I would not go with Mickey or Donald because you want as generic a name as possible. So, John, Bob, yeah, just give them a really generic name. And I wouldn't be a smartass about it. I wouldn't say John Smith or John Doe. Make it generic, but not make it obvious that you're just screwing with them.
And when Bob Nersessian said there's no place that you have to show ID, there are now places that you have to show ID to get in the door. And if you do not have ID at the door, you do not get in. So that is an update to what Nersessian said.
Well, I think what Bob Nersessian meant is there's no law that says you have to show ID or carry ID. So that's when to get into those casinos, it's not a law, it's just the policy of that particular casino. And many players just end up not playing in those casinos at all.
Okay, we're going to take one more question before we do a commercial break. And this is, why did you get rid of the quirky announcer guy at the beginning of each podcast? I like the sound of the winning money cashing noises and the way he said, and now, here are Bob and Richard. That was created when we had a radio podcast on KLAS 1230 AM in Las Vegas. This was created back when I started the podcast with Frank Nealon, before Richard became involved. The announcer picked the Pink Floyd song Money to go with the background, and it's that music that you hear. I forgot the announcer's name, but he was indeed a quirky guy. His voice was about an octave lower than anyone else's, and he had a second job as the bass singer for a 50s doo-wop band, similar to Sha Na Na. So he wore his hair long and swept back pretty much like Elvis. I liked him. I actually don't know why we pulled that from the start of our show, and that decision was Richard. So, Richard, why'd you do it?
Well, unfortunately, the only audio we had of that, it was married to the Pink Floyd music, right? I didn't have the voice separate from the music. And we started having copyright problems on YouTube. And so rather than deal with it because of the Pink Floyd song, I just cut it. So I guess I could go find some generic music, but I don't know. For now, there's just, good afternoon, coming from Bob Dancer.
So that's the reason. It's all Richard's fault. The South Point has more than 10,000 games, returning more than 99%. This is more than anyone else has. In June, the promotion is the $500,000 spin-to-win promotion. For each $2,000 coin in, limit 4 per person per day, Monday through Thursday, you receive a virtual spin right at your machine, earning free play or points. So far this year, the average spin has been worth about $10 for $2,000 coin in.
Hey guys, this is Colin from BlackjackApprenticeship.com, and if you're serious about card counting, I'd encourage you to check out the Blackjack Apprenticeship membership. It has the training tools you'll need to beat the game, like our comprehensive video course and our training suite, so you can learn each skill and virtually test yourself before ever stepping foot in a casino. It also includes the tools you'll need to succeed, like our pro betting software, casino database, results tracking software, and access to a community of like-minded Advantage players to network with in our members forum and chat room software. You can find out more at blackjackapprenticeship.com.
At videopoker.com, it's the best place to play lots of games. If you sign up for the gold membership, $8.95 a month or $79.95 a year, this allows you to get correction on most of the game. The game of the week is Bonus Streak Ultimate X. This is a 10 coin per line game, as all Ultimate X are. And as in other Ultimate X games, you earn multipliers on this hand to be played off next hand. Compared to regular Ultimate X, the multipliers in the bonus streak version are much harder to get. You typically need 3 of a kind rather than a pair of jacks. But when you get them for several hands in a row. The Wizard of Oz has worked out and published a strategy for the 8-6 jacks or better 10-play version of this game. This is a generous gift to the player community. The game, however, only returns 98.74% when played perfectly and 98.65% using the Wizard's simplified strategy. Except for highly unusual slot clubs and promotion, this is way too low for profitable play. I don't blame the Wizard for picking out a low-paying game to analyze. This is one of the higher-paying games on that particular version of video poker. we're going back to our questions. I was playing $10 play Deuces Wild and got a dealt royal with deuces for a $1,250 W2G payment. My question is why they withhold taxes on the entire $1,250 and not just the winning part of $1,200. I don't itemize taxes, so I'm forced to pay tax on the $50 that was my initial bet. A lot of players have been asking that question for a long time. The answer seems to be, well, that's the way the law is. Years ago, for about 6 months, the Orleans Casino in Las Vegas would not issue WTGs for jackpots of exactly $1,200, just for the reason you state. They had dollar triple play, 10-7 double bonus at the time, which is very popular with strong players, especially on double point days. And you'd get this jackpot on dealt 2s, 3s, and 4s. This only comes about every 18,000 hands or so, but there were a lot of machines and they were busy, so you saw it happening every day. We appreciated this. In the mid-90s, the Frontier in Las Vegas had a sign in their high limit room that any $1,250 jackpots could be played out at $11.95 at the player's option. That lasted for quite a while until eventually they were forced to take it down. I know it seems unfair that you have to pay taxes on the extra $50, but keep in mind that when you receive dealt quints for $600 to $800, depending on the pay schedule, in that very same game, that's a taxable event as well, and the vast majority of players do not report that. Do you have anything to add, Richard? All right. Here's somebody who wants to take a shot at blackjack. On a high count, big bet out there, I'm dealt a pair of 5s. The extra money goes out, and the dealer, without asking for a hand signal, deals one card sideways, a 6. Would it have been worth saying I wanted a split, even if it's my local casino and there's been very tolerant towards me counting there? Any words of wisdom on places, situation, and or times to do this?
Never. No, I mean, what you're doing is called taking a shot, and it will get you labeled as a shot taker, and it's a bad shot. I mean, they know nobody is going to split their 5s in that situation. I mean, especially you're a known player, it's your local casino. They know you're just taking a shot, and it's not worth it because it could get you thrown out. It will get you seriously disliked by the pit, which is not a good thing. So no, I would just never do that.
Okay. Same player says, I remember Richard mentioning something to the effect that you should be tucking a 22 every hour or so. The same local casino as mentioned above has a policy of shuffling if there is a tucked bust. Would you tuck 22s only on a negative count, or the outcome is either win push at 22 or getting a free shuffle? Stick to around 1 an hour, looking for the best spot of a lot of cards regardless of the count, or some combination of the two? Richard.
I don't remember saying that about tucking a 22 once an hour, but maybe I did.
I don't remember hearing it.
I mean, I think so first of all, to answer your question, I would not do that specifically to force a shuffle. Forcing away a negative deck is just not worth that much. I mean, you can just get up from the table and move to a different one. Also, I think we're talking about a double deck here because I don't know of any face down shoe game left. Maybe there's some left in America somewhere, but so you can't tuck a face up game. So for a double deck to get it shuffled a few hands early, it's just not worthwhile at all. What I think I may have been talking about is when playing against a hole card, specifically when you know that the dealer has 18 and you have 17, it's a 25% play to hit a hard 17 against a known 18. Now, I would not do this with 10-7, but if I had a 3-card hard 17 and specifically caught a 5, I would tuck that because A, the dealer may, miss it and pay me. And B, it's very plausible when they go, you have 22, for me to say, oh, I thought I had 21. Right? I mean, it does not look like you're taking a shot if they can convincingly believe that you thought you had 21. And usually when you catch a 5 and tuck the hand right away, right? It's what people do when they have 16. So maybe that's what I was talking about. But again, just to get them to shuffle the cards, no, I would not do that.
All right. New question. With the revocation of face mask mandates, do you think it's worth trying to continue to wear a mask and act afraid of COVID, even if no one around you in the casino is wearing one? I feel like it may bring more heat than the cover of a mask is worth. Does being a relatively unknown non-database player change things in either direction? Richard.
Most of the people that I'm hearing are saying they will wear the masks as long as they feel that it's not a detriment, right? At some point, it will change where it'll look weird to wear a mask. But as long as you can get away with it, I would definitely keep doing it. Once it starts to look weird, at some point I think they'll go, the only people wearing masks are the card counters or the, professional players. So I would absolutely continue to do it as long as it looked acceptable.
All right. The other day, I was playing with a dealer that was really good and quick with his hands and doing theatrical tricks with the cards as he dealt them to players. I was using halves all day and my brain was getting fried, so I went to color up 6,000 in black. Well, I counted the chips over twice, and when I pushed them in, the dealer restacked them, and suddenly there was only 5,500. I think he did some sleight of hand and pushed 5 blacks into his dealer tray. But there's a small chance I miscounted because I was so tired. Anyways, now I'm paranoid that when playing with so much money, a disgruntled dealer upset that I'm counting and not tipping them will try to steal money from me. It doesn't take much to take my edge away. Do you have any advice? Now, back when I was playing blackjack almost 30 years ago, whenever I came across an accomplished dealer like that, I would leave the table quickly. Why take the risk? Richard.
Yeah, what you're saying could happen, but I mean, the dealer doesn't benefit. It's one thing if the dealer could steal the money for himself, but to just give it to the casino, I mean, I guess it is possible you could have a spiteful dealer that would do that because he's pissed off. That same kind of dealer could do things like push when you have a winning hand, and if you're not on top of adding it up and making sure he's paying you correctly. But I think the chance of this happening is very rare. And I would also say this. A dealer who's a really accomplished mechanic is not going to be flashy at all. He is going to be the opposite. He is going to look as pedestrian as he possibly can. So, can it happen? Yes. Do you have to be vigilant? Yes. But, I would, you don't want to make yourself crazy. Right? Being paranoid every time you sit down to play that somebody's trying to steal from you. If it were to happen, I think it would be a very, very rare thing.
All right. Hi, I have a question regarding high-stakes blackjack play. I'm a part-time card counter that uses the halves count, and for most of my counting career, I've been red chipping at lower stakes play with a 2 times $100 max bet. I took about a year and a half off and got a second job delivering pizzas on top of my full-time job and managed to save up to $150,000 bankroll. Well, now with such a bankroll, I'm doing 2 times 500 as a top bet with minimal risk. The only issue is I'm so paranoid about keeping track of all my cash and chips, since I can easily carry 20 to 30 grand on me at one time, and I found it to be so much added stress. Richard, any advice?
Well, I mean, you're right. It is added stress when you have to carry around large amounts of money, not just, losing something falling out of your pocket, but also you have to be very careful to make sure, you're not robbed, that nobody follows you out of a casino. I don't know how to get around that. Eventually, unfortunately, you kind of get used to it and maybe get too lax carrying large amounts of money. Yeah, but I don't really have a way to relieve your stress. Maybe try meditation.
Yeah, or maybe just don't play so high.
Yeah, there's that too. Yeah.
So, all right. So right now our mailbag is totally empty. So for the next time we're going to do this, folks, you're going to have to start sending us in some questions. So at the end of our show, we have a recommended. Richard, do you have one for our listeners today?
Yeah. I happen to, when I'm having my morning coffee, eating my breakfast, I sometimes do crossword puzzles, and I was doing a crossword puzzle, and a clue came up about a book by James Clavell, and it just reminded me how much I liked him as a writer. So he wrote Shogun.
Shogun.
What?
Yeah, I was saying he wrote Shogun.
Yeah, Shogun and Taipan and King Rat. And so anyway, it made me want to go back. I particularly like when books are really well written, I like them to be really thick because I want it to last a long time. And so his books, Shogun and Taipan, are. And yeah, so I plan to go back and reread him. So if you haven't read any of his books, I highly recommend him. His name is James Clavell.
I agree with that one. I read all his books way back when. He's been dead for a few decades. And his Shogun book took place many hundreds of years ago. And
in Japan.
Back when Englishmen were first coming into China and first coming into Japan. It's quite a fascinating story. Mine isn't quite so long ago, but I just watched the Ken Burns documentary on Mark Twain. This originally came out in 2002 on PBS, and I missed it then. And it's now on Canopy, which is a free streaming service if you have a library card. And I find myself enjoying it. It's only 3 hours long, maybe 4, so it doesn't take too long to listen to. But Mark Twain was a fascinating guy, and I've enjoyed a lot of his work. So I found that really interesting. My only complaint about Canopy is I like the speed of 1.25 when I listen to these shows when I'm streaming. I can still hear all the words, and it doesn't take nearly as long to listen to. Well, Canopy, you can't do that. You can do it at normal speed, or the next one up is 1.5, which is pretty fast. So I would have preferred it if Canopy has a 1.25, but they don't. All right. That's it for this week. Thanks all of our listeners for sending in the question. And thank you, Richard. Go out and hit lots of royal flushes, everybody. Good day.